one of the twin children of Victoria Caputo, daughter of Long Island medium Teresa Caputo, is currently critically ill and hospitalized. In this situation, Victoria is alone at the hospital, and her husband, Michael Mastrandria, is not looking for her or any of her children. Teresa Caputo is furious with Michael. Teresa felt that it was Michael's duty as a husband to be there at such times, but his neglect left her extremely resentful and angry. Victoria Caputo sat quietly by the bedside of her critically ill child, her heart breaking with each labored breath the tiny one took. The sterile hospital room felt cold and distant, yet the warmth of her love for her child kept her rooted to the spot. It had been hours, and still there was no sign of Michael Mastrandria, her husband, the father of her children. Her phone buzzed on the bedside table, but each glance revealed nothing but messages from her mother, Teresa Caputo, checking in. Victoria hadn't even had the energy to respond. Her thoughts kept returning to Michael's absence. It wasn't just the pain of seeing her child so unwell that hurt. It was the deep, biting ache of loneliness that stung her even more. Where was Michael? Why wasn't he here with her, supporting her through the most harrowing experience of her life? Teresa, miles away, had heard the news and felt her heart drop. A mother's instinct kicked in, and fury boiled within her. How could Michael not be there for his wife and children in a time like this? She had always known that Michael wasn't the most present husband, but this was something else. He was supposed to be her rock, the one who would stand by her side through thick and thin. But instead, it was her own daughter left to navigate the storm alone. Furious and bitter, Teresa's thoughts spun as she paced her living room. How dare he? She had been nothing but supportive of his relationship with Victoria, but this was inexcusable. Determined to put things right, Teresa picked up her phone, dialing Michael's number. It rang several times before he finally picked up, his voice distant and distracted. "Michael, it's Teresa," she said, her voice sharp and filled with righteous anger. "Where the hell are you? Your wife is sitting in a hospital room, heartbroken and scared, and you're nowhere to be found. This is your child, your responsibility. How could you abandon her like this?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line before Michael finally spoke, his voice small and defensive. "Teresa, I'm just overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do, and I thought maybe Victoria needed some space." Teresa's anger flared. "Space? She needs you, Michael. You are the one she needs right now. Don't you understand that? You promised her you'd be there through everything. Your daughter is fighting for her life, and you're letting her face this alone." Michael remained silent, the weight of his neglect finally sinking in. Teresa wasn't finished. "You'd better get yourself to that hospital right now. I don't care what excuses you have. Victoria deserves more than what you've given her today, and you need to be the man you promised her you would be. Get your act together, because if you don't, you'll regret it." As she hung up, Teresa stared at her phone, still seething. She couldn't protect her daughter from everything, but damn it, she would fight for her. Michael Mastrandria needed to learn what it truly meant to be a husband and father, and he needed to learn it fast. Victoria wasn't alone, not with her mother standing firm in her corner. Teresa wouldn't allow it, not this time. However, John Carter had always been a skeptic. He had heard of psychics, mediums, and all the spiritual talk that people swore by, but he firmly believed it was all just a bunch of tricks. That was until he met Teresa Caputo, the Long Island medium, who would change his perspective forever. John's life had been falling apart. His job was stressful, his relationship strained, and he felt as though he had been walking through life on autopilot. A close friend, sensing his pain, convinced him to attend one of Teresa's live shows. Reluctantly, John agreed, mostly out of curiosity. The night of the show, John felt out of place. The atmosphere was heavy with anticipation, and the air seemed charged with energy. Teresa stood at the front of the room, glowing with an aura of confidence and warmth. As she spoke to the audience, she began to sense energies, connecting with loved ones who had passed on. Many in the crowd were in tears, touched by the messages they received. But John, arms crossed and face skeptical, sat in the back, rolling his eyes at the spectacle. Then it happened. Theresa paused, her eyes locking with John. She smiled gently, walking towards him, and said, "You don't believe, do you?" John felt a cold chill run down his spine. How could she possibly know that? "You're holding on to something, John," Theresa continued. "A regret, something you can't let go of. A loss you never fully healed from." She paused for a moment, then her expression softened. "Someone on the other side wants you to know they're with you." At that moment, John's heart raced. A name popped into his mind, his older brother Danny. Danny had passed away in a car accident years ago, and John had never truly come to terms with it. He had blamed himself for not being there when it happened. Theresa's eyes glistened as she relayed the message. "Danny wants you to know it wasn't your fault. He's at peace, and he's been with you every step of the way." Tears welled up in John's eyes. For the first time in years, he felt a weight lift off his shoulders. It was as though all the guilt, all the pain he had been carrying for so long, was suddenly released. Danny's spirit had found a way to reach him, and the healing began. John wasn't sure what to make of it. He had always believed that life's hardships were just random, with no real meaning behind them. But after his encounter with Theresa, he couldn't deny the transformation within himself. He began to open up, not just to the idea of the afterlife, but to the possibility that there were things beyond his understanding, things he had never been willing to acknowledge. The next few weeks were a blur of change. John reconnected with his family, mended his strained relationships, and found the courage to pursue his dreams, things he had put off for far too long. He realized that while the world might not always make sense, sometimes you just had to trust that there was something greater at work. Theresa Caputo had done more than just read his energy. She had unlocked a part of John's heart he thought was long closed. She had shown him that healing wasn't just about time, it was about letting go and accepting what you couldn't change. And for the first time in years, John Carter was finally at peace. However, the small sunlit room was quiet except for the gentle hum of the ceiling fan. Lisa sat on the edge of the couch, her hands nervously clasped together. The grief had consumed her for the past year since her husband, Daniel, passed away unexpectedly. It felt like her heart had been shattered into a million pieces that she couldn't put back together. That was until she found out about Theresa Caputo, the renowned medium who had helped many people find peace by connecting them with their loved ones on the other side. Desperate for closure, Lisa had reached out, not knowing what to expect, but hoping for a chance to hear Daniel's voice again. Theresa arrived with her signature blonde hair and a calm, empathetic demeanor. She sat across from Lisa, offering her a gentle smile. "Lisa," Theresa said softly, "I'm here to help you. I know you've been through a lot. Just remember, your husband is here with us." Tears welled up in Lisa's eyes as she nodded, unsure if she could handle it. But deep down, she needed this. She needed to know that Daniel hadn't truly left her. After a brief moment of silence, Theresa's face shifted slightly, her eyes becoming focused as if she were listening to something just beyond the realm of the physical. "Daniel's here," she said, her voice tinged with warmth. "He's telling me that he's sorry he left so suddenly. He didn't want to hurt you." Lisa gasped, her heart skipping a beat. The suddenness of Daniel's passing had been one of the hardest things to bear. He had always promised to be there for her, and when he was gone, it felt like the world had crumbled beneath her. "Daniel says that he watches over you every day. He sees you struggling, and he's so proud of the strength you've shown." Theresa paused, her eyes fixed as she seemed to receive more messages from the other side. "He's also showing me a symbol," she continued, "a small blue bird. He says you'll see it at a time when you need his presence the most. It's his way of reminding you that he's never really gone." Lisa's tears flowed freely now, but this time, they were tears of relief. The weight that had settled on her chest for so long began to lift. "Thank you," Lisa whispered, her voice breaking. "Thank you so much. I feel like I can finally breathe again." Theresa smiled warmly. "That's what he wants for you. To heal, to live, and to know that love doesn't end with death. It continues in ways we can't always understand, but it's always there." As the session ended, Lisa felt an overwhelming sense of peace. It wasn't that her grief was gone, but the connection she felt with Daniel was stronger than ever. She now knew that he was with her, always, just a heartbeat away. However, Theresa Caputo sat in her familiar spot on the Drew Barrymore show, the warm lights reflecting off her signature blonde hair. As the interview continued, Drew Barrymore could sense that there was something unusual in the air. The audience, normally filled with laughs and light-hearted chatter, had grown eerily silent. Theresa, always poised, was noticeably quieter today. A strange energy surrounded her, and it wasn't just the usual mediumistic aura. Drew, ever perceptive, leaned in with a gentle smile. "Theresa, is something happening right now? I feel like something's shifting." Theresa's eyes flickered, a sign she had felt a shift from the other side. She nodded slowly, almost to herself, as she closed her eyes. The camera zoomed in, and for a moment, the audience watched her, waiting in suspense. "I'm feeling, there's a woman here. She's telling me something important," Theresa whispered, her voice soft but filled with intensity. "She's asking if her daughter is here." Drew's eyes widened, her heart racing. "Is it someone in the crew?" Theresa nodded, a tear beginning to form in her eye. "Yes, her mother is coming through. She's so proud of her. She wants her to know that she's watching over her. She's been so worried about her, but she's finally at peace now." The audience gasped, but it was the producer sitting behind the camera who looked as if her world had just shifted. She was holding her breath, trying to remain composed, but the tears started to well up in her eyes. She had never shared this with anyone, the pain of losing her mother, so long ago. The producer stood up, trembling, her hand covering her mouth as the tears began to fall. That's my mom. That's my mom you're talking about." Theresa reached across, placing a hand on Drew's, her voice steady yet filled with deep compassion. "She's here, Honorable, she's here, and she's so happy that you're continuing her legacy. She says that you've been afraid to take that leap, but she wants you to know that now is your time." The producer, shaking, stumbled forward, overwhelmed with emotion. "I always felt her with me, but hearing this, I don't know how to explain it." Theresa's eyes softened as she continued, "You were never alone. She's been guiding you, especially in these last few years. She says you need to trust yourself, and she says, stop doubting your strength." Drew, wiping her own eyes now, leaned into the moment. "This is beautiful. Theresa, you've done something truly incredible today." With that, the room fell into a peaceful silence, filled only by the quiet sobs of the producer, all silently acknowledging the power of the unseen world. Theresa Caputo had done what she does best, brought healing even in the most unexpected of places. As the tears continued to fall, the producer whispered, "Thank you. Thank you for this gift." Theresa smiled softly, her own tears welling up as she offered her a gentle nod. "It's not me, it's all them. I'm just the messenger." And with that, they all shared a moment of profound connection, where the lines between this world and the next seemed to blur just a little bit more. However, it was an early morning at the Drew Barrymore show studio, the air buzzing with anticipation. The guests were ready, the crew was set, but Drew had a special feeling today. She had invited the renowned psychic medium, Theresa Caputo, to make a rare appearance, and Drew could sense it would be an unforgettable experience. Theresa, with her signature blonde hair and vibrant energy, walked into the studio. Drew greeted her with warmth and a hint of excitement. "Theresa, I'm so happy to have you here," Drew said. "I've heard so much about your incredible gift, and I think today, There's something special that's about to happen." Theresa smiled, exuding a calm confidence. "I'm happy to be here, Drew. Let's see what the spirits have to say." As the show began, Drew introduced the segment with a playful tone. "Today's going to be a little different. We're not just chatting with a psychic medium. We're seeing if Theresa can connect with the loved ones of our team. Some of our crew members have lost people they deeply care about, and today they might get a chance to hear from them." The first person Theresa felt drawn to was the producer of the show, Jake. He had recently lost his father to a long battle with illness. Theresa closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The studio fell silent. The air seemed to shift, as if something invisible was in the room. "I have a man here, a father figure, very loving, but also very strong. He passed recently, and I'm feeling a sense of peace, but also a lot of love for his son," Theresa said, looking directly at Jake. "Is there a connection with a J name in your family?" Jake's eyes widened, a tear escaping. He nodded, slowly. "Yes, my dad, his name was John." Theresa nodded knowingly. "He's here, Jake, and he wants you to know that he's at peace. He says you've been carrying a lot of the weight of his illness, but now he's free from pain and he's watching over you." The studio gasped, and Drew's voice trembled slightly as she spoke. "Jake, do you feel this?" Jake, overcome with emotion, wiped his eyes. "I can't believe it. That's exactly what I needed to hear. Thank you, Theresa. Thank you so much." Theresa smiled softly, her energy radiating compassion. "Your dad is with you, Jake. He's proud of you." The show continued with other members of the crew receiving similar messages, some from grandparents, others from siblings or old friends. Each reading was more poignant than the last, and the atmosphere was filled with raw emotion. As the segment came to a close, Drew turned to Theresa with a heartfelt smile. "Theresa, what you've done today is incredible. Not just for Jake, but for all of us. You've brought something so special here: hope, healing, and connection." Theresa nodded, her face glowing with gratitude. "It's an honor, Drew. I always say that the spirits are here to help, to guide, and to let us know that love never really leaves. It's always with us." Drew's eyes sparkled with a mix of awe and wonder. This was one of those moments that I'll never forget. Thank you so much, Theresa. And thank you to everyone who shared their stories with us today. As the credits rolled, the crew stood in silence, each person reflecting on the messages they had received. It was clear that something profound had happened that day, a reminder that the ones we love never truly leave, and that sometimes the most unexpected connections can bring healing. And so, the Drew Barrymore Show wrapped up a truly magical segment, forever marking a special moment in both their lives and the lives of the viewers who witnessed it. Hello, lovely viewers. Welcome to my channel. I am Mina. Hope your day is so well. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe the channel.